Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis and Mirz Hashem. Today we will be learning Daf Lamed Dalet Amud Beis, beginning a brand new Siman, Siman Reish Samach Beis, Lekadesh Shabbos B'Shulchan Aruch. The requirement that we are to be Mekadesh Shabbos, we have to sanctify and be Mechabed Shabbos B'Shulchan Aruch with a set table, Ubiksus Nikia, and with nice clean clothing, Ubay Gimel Seifim. And here we have 3 Seifim. Our learning today should be a schos for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanasunim Batzara Ubashivya, Ha'imdim Bein Bayam Ubein Bayabasha, Hamakim Yerachem Aleihem, V'Yotzieh Mitzara L'Rvacha Me'afelu La'Oiro Mishiba L'Geula, Hashta Bagola V'Zman Kariv V'Naimar Amen. Okay, without further ado, Lamed Dalet Amud Beis, Siman Reish Samach Beis, Sif Aleph. Says the Mechaber, Yesader Shulchanoi, a person should set his table, V'yatzia hamitos, and arrange and set up the couches. Now this does not mean the bed that you sleep on, even though the Mishnah Berurah is going to say that yes, we should make our beds on Erev Shabbos as well, but the Mechaber over here is referring to the mitos, the couches that they used to sit on back in the day. We know in the time of Chazal, they ate b'mesiba, they would recline on couches. Those are the couches that the Mechaber is talking about. So it's part really of setting the table, the makom ha'achila, the place where you're going to be eating the Suda Shabbos. So Yesader Shulchanoi v'yatzia hamitos, v'yasakein kol inyonei habayis, and you should arrange and clean up and be mesader all of the inyonei habayis. You should clean the house, and the house should be musuder when it comes to Shabbos. Kedei sheyimtzeenu oruch u'musuder bevoyoi mibeis hakneses, so that one should find everything set and arranged and organized and neat when he comes home from shul on Friday night. Says the Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Aleph. The Mechaber said, Yesader Shulchano, you should set the table. Explains the Mishnah Berurah, this means may Erev Shabbos. On Erev Shabbos, you should set the table, Lelele Shabbos, for the purposes of the Shabbos night Suda, the Friday night Suda. Ois Katan Beis, Hamitos. This means the mitos sheyoshvin aleihen, the couches that you're going to sit on for the Suda. But the Mishnah Berurah brings down from the Bach, v'toiv shetia mutzas gam hamita sheyoshen aleha. It is also an inyan that you should make the bed that you're going to be sleeping on. Everything should be nice and clean and arranged and mesudar. Says the Mishnah Berurah is Katan Gimel Aruch. We should come home and you should find everything set. Says the Chavetz Chaim, shezehu kvayid Shabbos, because this is proper kavod Shabbos. V'abru Chazal, and the Chazal tell us very famous Gemara, Shabbos Kuf Yotes Amud Beis. Shnei malachei hashares melaven loy la'adam be'erev Shabbos mibeis hakneses lebeisai. On Erev Shabbos, it's really on Shabbos, but when somebody goes to shul on Erev Shabbos and then he comes home on Shabbos, 2 malachim escort him home. Echad toiv, one is, so to speak, a malach toiv, a good malach, ve'echad ra, and one, so to speak, is a malach ra, a not good malach. Kishebola beisai, when you come to the house, umotza ner doluk, and we find a lit nair, so we find that the nairs are prepared, v'shulchan aruch, and a set table, umita mutzas, and the couches and the beds, according to what we said, are made and arranged. Malach toiv omer, the malach toiv says, yiratzain sheyehekein l'shabbos haba. It should be the ratzon of Hashem Yisparach that the same thing should happen next week. Next week it should also be this way. Umalach ra oine omein bal karchai, and the malach ra has to answer amen against his will. V'em lav, and if this is not the case, hula hepech, v'em lav, hula hepech, chas v'shalom. If it's not that way, if they come home and you find the house not mesudar, the table not set, the mitos are not made and set, then the opposite happens. Then the Malach Ra turns around, and the Malach Ra says that it should be like this next week. And then the Malach Toiv has to answer amen. Bal Karchai. So the explanation of this is, we know Chazal tell us mitzvah gereres mitzvah, one mitzvah drags along another mitzvah, avera gereres avera, one avera drags along another avera. Why is that? It's very simple. When a person does a mitzvah, he makes his neshama, he makes his ruach HaKodesh grow. He becomes more kadosh. the more kadosh you become, then the more of a connection you have to mitzvahs, the more of a pull mitzvahs have on you, and it weakens the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is going to have a harder time tripping you up. So if somebody prepares properly for Shabbos, then the Malachim come. The Malachim see that the table is set and everything else. Then the Malach Tov says, Yehiratzeh, that next week it should be this way too. Because now that you did it this week, it's going to be easier to do it next week. And maybe this is why. Because there are malachim that you don't know about, that you don't see, that you don't hear, that you don't anything. Every time, it's brought down that every time a mitzvah comes to a person, there are always two malachim. It doesn't matter which mitzvah it is. This is not necessarily unique to the Shabbos table. We always talk about it, about the Shulchan Aruch on Shabbos. But when a person comes to the Beis HaKnesses, a person comes to shul in the morning, and he has his tefillin in front of him, there are also two malachim. There's one malach that watches to see, are you mekayim the mitzvah k'deboy? Do you go to fulfill the mitzvah properly? If you do, then that malach says, Yiratzon lemachar yehei kazeh. It should be like this tomorrow also. Now the next day you have more of a cheshik for the mitzvah. And if there's a Yetzer Hara that's trying to stop you from doing the mitzvah, he has a hard time. He finds more resistance. But the opposite, chas v'chalila, is also true. If a person is nisrashal mitzvahs, if a person is weak when it comes to his kiyam mitzvahs, he's not mekayim mitzvahs properly, so then the malach ra finds his way in. And the Malach Ra says, okay, it should be like this in the future too. Then, the next time the mitzvah comes to you, it's not pulling at you the same way. And the Yetzer Hara has an easier time tripping you up when it comes to that mitzvah. So this is what the Mishnah Berurah is saying. This is where the Chavetz Chaim, this is where the Mechaber is getting over here, this inyan, that you have to be Mesada the Shulchan, you have to arrange the beds so that when you come home, that you should find everything misudar, because this is what Chazal say. It's very important that when you come home from shul, everything should be done properly. Continues the Chavetz Chaim. Toiv lefanois kurei achvish me'abayis mi'ba'od yom. It is proper to clear out the cobwebs. That's what kurei achvish are. Kurei achvish are cobwebs. You should sweep out the cobwebs when it's still day. Lenakois es habayis, to properly clean the house, lechvod Shabbos, in honor of the Shabbos day. Chavetz Chaim says, and he brings this down from the Magen Avram and the Graz. It's a person should take care besudas halayla, by the Friday night suda, shaloi lizrak davar babayis chutz l'shulchan, that he shouldn't throw any kind of psilis, any kind of garbage, any kind of crumbs or seeds or pits or whatever it is, off the table onto the floor on Shabbos. If you're not going to be able to sweep up afterwards in a way that is permissible, we're going to learn those halachas Be'ezus Hashem Yisparach later on. There are ways that you're allowed to sweep. There are ways that you're not allowed to sweep. Different types of brooms, different types of floors. So if you're able to sweep in a derech heter, then fine, you're able to clean up. But if you're not able to sweep in a derech heter, in an oifen that's mutter, then you should be very careful not to discard anything on the floor. Why? Because if you do, the house is going to become menuvel. The house is going to become unclean again on Shabbos. So it's not only important to clean the house in preparation of Shabbos. We also want to keep the house clean throughout Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah. So Toiv lizar besudas halayla shaloi lizrak davar babayis chutz l'shulchan im ein darke lechabis habayis b'davar hamuter achar sudazu. Why? Kedei shaloi yanavel habayis, so that the house should not become unclean. V'chein besudas shachris, it's so too by the day meal, Shabbos day. Im eina mechabdei achar kach. If you're not going to be able to sweep after the Shabbos day meal, so too by the Shabbos day meal, you have to make sure to keep the house and the floor nice and clean. Says the Ramah, second line down in the Shulchan Aruch, Haga. V'yiyeh shulchanoi aruch kol yom haShabbos. Your table should be set for the entire Shabbos day. Says the Mishnah Berurah's Katan Dalet Kol, ad la'achar havdalah. You should have the table set from Erev Shabbos all the way through until after Havdalah. Yesh Noagin, there are those who even had a minig, that there should be a double tablecloth on the table, Forget about the challah decal, the challah cover that's on top of the challahs. Besides that, there should be 2 tablecloths. Why? Mishum shekishim in na'arin hamapa, because the way they did things back in the day was they had a tablecloth, they cleared off all the dishes, then they wanted to shake out the tablecloth from the crumbs. Now, if you're going to do that, when you take the tablecloth off to shake it out, the table is going to be uncovered. No, we don't want the table uncovered at any point during Shabbos. Nimtza shulchan megula. If you're going to have only a single tablecloth, you're going to uncover the table. Now, what you see from this Mishnah Berurah, it seems, is that when the Ramah says over here, "V'yeh shulchanei aruch kol yom haShabbos," your table should be set for the duration of Shabbos, it seems that what that means is that the table should be covered. And indeed, if you look at the Darkei Moshe on the Torah, from the words of the Darkei Moshe in the Torah, it sounds like that's what the Ramah means. What the Ramah means is you should cover your table on Erev Shabbos, and your table should remain covered with a nice, beautiful tablecloth for the entirety of Shabbos until after Havdalah. Because the truth is, to set the table on Erev Shabbos for the Shabbos night meal, so we know what that means. We're going to cover the table with a tablecloth. We're going to put out the dishes. We're going to put out the lechem mishta. We're going to put out the kais, the wine, the utensils, and everything else. We're going to have a beautiful set table. But then after the meal, you're going to clean off. So what does it mean that the table should be set throughout Shabbos? Could be. It means that you should right away set the table for the Shabbos day Suda. Maybe. Could be. But from the Ramah, it seems it means keep the table covered throughout Shabbos, L'chvay Shabbos. I saw a very interesting, brought down from the Sefer Tosfos Shabbos, that there's another inyan of having the table set. And you know what that is? After the meal, have the table set with Sfarim for limud HaTorah. That's covered Shabbos. That when the table is not being used for Suda Shabbos, it's being used for limud HaTorah, which is also a tremendous covered Shabbos. Okay. Says the Ramah Weiter, I broke off the middle of the Ramah here, second line down. There were just a few words more, so I'll just read again from Hagah. Hagah v'yeh shulchanei aruch kol yom haShabbos. The table should be covered and set for the entirety of Shabbos, which we've seen means throughout after Havdalah. V'chein haminig v'ein l'shanois. That's the minig, and we should not step away. We shouldn't change that minig. Sif Beis, says the Mechaber, 3 lines down. Yishtadel shiyu loi begadim no'im l'Shabbos. A person should see to it, and he should try that he should have beautiful clothing for Shabbos. V'im ef shaloi, and if it's not possible for him, he doesn't have the means, he can't do it. V'im ef shaloi, lepachas, at least yishalshel, he should lower his garments. What does that mean? Says the Ramah in the parentheses here. Pirush, what does Yishalshel mean? Yishalshelem klape mata. He should lower them down, lower to the ground. I guess it means open up the hem or something and let it down. Sheyu arukim, so that the begadim should be longer. Kemidas ha'ashirim hayoshvim beveisam, like the style of wealthy people. People of leisure, people who don't have to do labor, manual labor, wore longer clothing. If you've got to do manual labor, you've got to be working in the fields, you've got to be working in the dirt, so then you had shorter clothing. But a wealthy person was able to have nice long clothing because he didn't have to do such labor. Says the Ramah, says the Mechaber over here, and the Ramah, if you don't have a way of purchasing beautiful Shabbos begadim, do what you can to do something to the clothing that you do have to make them more bakavidik l'kavod Shabbos. How do you do that? Let them down, make them longer in the style of wealthy people. So just to read the Mechaber in its straight on, the ef shaloi lepachas yishalshel, said the Ramah, pirish yishalshel klape mata shu arukim kimidas hashirim hayoshim beveisam begadav lamata. You should lengthen your garments and let them down lower, derech kavod, which is more of a derech kavod. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Cotton Hay, Yishtadil, a person should put in effort to have beautiful Shabbos clothing. What is this based on? Diksiv, because we have the pasuk in Yeshaya that says, V'chibadetoi, we have to honor Shabbos, we have to be mechabed Shabbos. Dirshu Chazal, and Chazal darshan from that pasuk, Shelo yehei malbushecha shel Shabbos ke malbushecha shel Chol, that the clothing that you wear on Shabbos should not be like the clothing that you wear during the week. V'toiv, and it would be good. Shelo yilbash b'Shabbos mikol ma shalovish b'choil. You shouldn't wear anything on Shabbos that you wear during the week. Afilu chaluk, even the shirt should not be something, it shouldn't be the same as your weekday shirt. You should have Shabbos shirts and you should have weekday shirts. V'em efshaloi, and if it's possible for you, toiv sheyeloi gam talis acher l'Shabbos. A person should have a Shabbos talis. He should have one Shabbos for the week, one talis for the weekday, and a different talis for Shabbos. So you have people who wear solid white shirts all week long, and they don't like white on white shirts. They like solid white shirts. So they want to wear a solid white shirt on Shabbos as well. You want to do that? Okay. But go to the shirt store and buy a more chashuva solid white shirt for Shabbos. Have a different one for Shabbos. Same thing with everything else. You wear a suit, so buy a suit and tie during the week. Buy a more chashuva suit and more chashuva ties for Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut and vav. The Mechaber said you should have begadim no'im, says the Chavetz Chaim, kifi yecholtai. In accordance with your means and your ability, you should have nicer clothing for Shabbos. And now the Mishnah Berurah makes a very important point over here. Va'afilu imhu b'derech levadoi. Even if a person is on the road, he's traveling alone. Ubebeis einam Yehudim. Maybe he's traveling and he's staying in a non-Jewish inn or a hotel, and then there are no other Yidim around. Gam kein yilbash bigdei Shabbos. He should still put on his bigdei Shabbos. Ki ein hamalbushim l'chvoid haroyim. You're not putting on your beautiful Shabbos clothing for the people who are going to see you. You're not putting it on for their eyes. You're not putting it on for their compliments. You're not putting it on for the covet that you're going to get from them for the beautiful clothing that you have. Ki im l'chvoid haShabbos. You're putting the beautiful Shabbos clothing on in honor of Shabbos. So even if you're out in the desert and there's nobody else around, you still put on beautiful clothing, l'chvayid HaShabbos. You don't say, no one's going to see it, so no one's going to appreciate my Shabbos clothing. No, you're putting it on for Shabbos, not for them. Kasav Sefer Chasidim, it's brought down in the Sefer Chasidim, Al Yikach Adam Yelid B'Shabbos. Very interesting. Don't hold a baby. Don't hold a child on Shabbos. Ad sheyosem tchila kar b'chekoy. Make sure you put I was going to say a cloth diaper, but nobody knows what those are anymore. Make sure you put a blanket or a sheet or something on you before you take the baby. Why? Kedei shelo yatanef begadov. Because you don't want your Shabbos begadim to become dirty. In other words, what we're seeing over here is, lekavit Shabbos, it's very important that your house stays clean and neat for the whole Shabbos. Your big day Shabbos stay clean and neat for the entirety of your Shabbos. So don't risk that your big day Shabbos are going to get dirty in the middle of Shabbos. That's not going to be covered Shabbos. Ois Katan Zayin, Hayoshvim Beveisam. The Mechaber said if you can't afford a beautiful Shabbos suit, a beautiful Shabbos bekesha, so let out the hem, lengthen your garments lower to the ground in the style of Ashirim. These are people Hayoshvim Beveisam. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Zayin, Hainu she'enam tzrichim l'salik bigdeim in ha'aretz b'shvil malacha. These are people who don't do manual labor, so they don't have a need to raise up their begadim because of the work that they're going to be doing. So they're people of leisure. They wear longer clothing, so that's more makovedik. You can't afford a Shabbos suit, lengthen your weekday garments. Now we go to Sif Gimel, 2 lines off the bottom in the Shulchan Aruch, says the Mechaber. Yilbash begadav hanoim, you should put on your beautiful Shabbos begadim. V'yismach bebias haShabbos, and you should rejoice in the coming of Shabbos. Ki yoytze likras hamelech, like somebody is going out to greet the king, or ki yoytze likras chasan v'kala, or like somebody is going to greet the chasan and kala. Take a look at a chasana the next time by your chasana, and take a look when they're about to do the intro, and the chasan and kala are about to come into the dance floor. Everybody goes and they congregate by the door, and they all have big smiles on their faces and everything else, ready likras chasan v'kala. That's what it's supposed to be when you go out to greet Shabbos. So you put on your begadim noim, you rejoice bebias haShabbos, ki yoytze likras hamelech, or ki yoytze likras chasan v'kala. Where do we get this idea from? So it's based on a Gemara. The Rabbi Chanina ma'atif v'koi befanya damali shabbata. The Gemara brings down that Rabbi Chanina would go ahead, he would be ma'atif, He would put on his Shabbos begadim, and he would go out b'fanya damali Shabbata in the evening of Erev Shabbos, going into Shabbos. V'amar, and he would say, Boyu, come, v'neitze, and let's go out, likras Shabbos Malkasa, to go greet the Shabbos queen. Rabbi Yana would have a slightly different nusach. He would say, Boi chala, let's greet the kala, Shabbos Malka, that's the kala. Let's go out and greet the kala. And maybe this is where we have the different nuschos, nusach Ashkenaz, nusach Sfard, when it comes to the end of L'chadoidi, Boi kala, Shabbos Malkasa. Okay. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Ches, Yilbash, you should put on your begadim noim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, a very interesting thing. He brings this down from the Aguda. He says over here, you should put on your Shabbos begadim Yilbash, the Yelech Bahem, and you should go in your Shabbos begadim ad moitzoi Shabbos achar Havdalah. Until motzoi Shabbos after Havdalah. Now, when you look at this Mishnah Berurah, you could understand it two different ways. One way you could understand it, and indeed this is the first way I understood it, is that the Mishnah Berurah is telling you, don't think that you're going to get up Shabbos morning, put on your beautiful Shabbos begadim, go to shul in your Shabbos begadim, maybe sit down to the Suda in your Shabbos begadim, and then after the Suda, you want to go out to the backyard and, you want to maybe chazer the Dirshu or chazer the Daf, or you want to go for a spatzir. And now you're going to take off your beautiful Shabbos suit and you'll go put on some casual slacks, a nice casual shirt, maybe a sweater, and you're going to go for a spatzir. No. It's Shabbos. The same way we said that your shulchan, your table, should be set and it should be covered for the entirety of Shabbos. No, you should also be wearing Big Day Shabbos for the entirety of Shabbos. When my kids were younger, when I had little kids, so it was always a problem. Shabbos afternoon, they want to go out to play. Now you buy your 8-year-old, your 9-year-old, your 10-year-old, you buy them a suit. And we all know what's going to happen to the suit if they go out Shabbos afternoon to play with their friends with the suit, right? It's going to be a beautiful brand new suit on Erev Shabbos, and by Shabbos afternoon, it's going to have 2 holes in the knees. So what do? So what some people do is they say, okay, change. Put on your weekday clothing. But that's not proper. Okay, these are little kids. But I wanted to be mechanech my kids, that Shabbos is Shabbos. So I always bought for them Shabbos play pants. So I got for them Shabbos suits, and then they also had Shabbos play pants. Shabbos play pants were nicer pants, but they weren't the suit pants, and there was something that they could go play in. And if they're going to get a rip, they're going to get a rip, and I'm going to replace them. But they had Shabbos play pants. So that's the first way I understood this Mishnah Berurah. But I saw brought down that there's another way you could understand this, which is, we learned above that you're supposed to have beautiful Big Day Shabbos, and we learned that you're not supposed to wear anything that you wear during the week on Shabbos. Well, guess what? You also shouldn't wear anything that you wear on Shabbos during the week. If you take your Shabbos clothing and then you wear it during the week, so then you're denigrating your Shabbos clothing. Now it's not such a great kibbutz Shabbos when you put it on Shabbos. What do you mean? You wore it during the week. So it could be that what the Mishnah Berurah is saying over here from the Aguda also is that you should see to it to change right after Havdalah. Because if you continue wearing your Shabbos clothing after Havdalah, you're wearing it during the week. So there are those that do bring down such a concept. On the other hand, it's brought down from the Trumas Hadeshen that the Trumas Hadeshen, Bedafka wore his Shabbos clothing until he went to sleep on Motzei Shabbos. One reason for this is to still be wearing the Shabbos clothing when you eat Malava Malka. There are other reasons brought down that maybe you should taka wear them until you go to sleep Motzei Shabbos. I'm just pointing out different meanings that you could discern here from this Mishnah Berurah. Ois Katan Tes, says the Mishnah Berurah, V'yismach b'bia Shabbos. You should rejoice in the coming of Shabbos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'chol amar belechabdoi. Anybody who is marbet to be mechabed Shabbos, anybody who increases, anybody who honors Shabbos in a greater way, hein begufai, whether with his body, hein bebegadav, or with his clothing, hein ba'achilu ushtia, or with eating and drinking, harei zeh meshubach. So we don't have to wait until Pesach night by the Seder. We can have every single Shabbos. By increasing your covet for Shabbos. The Mekubalim were very, very careful. There should never be machlokes. But for sure, on Shabbos, there shouldn't be machlokes. And it's very interesting to see the way the Yetzer Hara manages to creep in. A lot of machlokes break out in shul on Shabbos. People come on Shabbos to shul and they start kitatas. Why did he get shlishi and why did he get shishi and how come I didn't get maftir and I wanted this kibbud and he got that kibbud. So if the Yetzer Hara starts up with it, you know that it's a davar choshev. So the Mekubalim say you should be very, very careful. No machlokes on Shabbos. And Mishnah Berurah says, "Vayter ubeprat bein ish leishtoi." And certainly when it comes to shalom bayis between husband and wife, there should not be any arguments, any machlokes of any kind on Shabbos. I saw even when I was a young child, people from the previous generation, how nizar they were on Shabbos. It's also brought down that on Shabbos, who would tell a lie on Shabbos? Chas v'shalom. Even if somebody's mishaker, he's not going to be mishaker on Shabbos. Lashon hara. So Lashon hara is always terrible. On Shabbos, the people on Nizar are more on Shabbos. It was brought down over here for sure. Machlokes there shouldn't be on Shabbos. V'chein muchach begitten daftun beis amud aleph gabi hanu bei trei dahavu minzi b'hadi adadi ayin sham. Ois kat yud. The Mechaber said over here that we should rejoice in greeting the Shabbos as if we were going out to greet the king or a chasan and kala. Says the Mishnah Berurah over here. Bektas b'kaimos noigen in some places they had the minig. Lotzeis mi beis hakneses to walk out of the shul la'azara to the courtyard va'omrim and to say boyu v'neitzei, let's come together and let's go out to greet Shabbos. Va'anu noyegin, we're noyeg that we stay in shul shamahapchid pnein l'tzad ma'ariv, we turn around. Normally the shul is built so that the Aron HaKodesh is in the Mizrach, in the east, and because we want to be facing Eretz Yisrael, so we're used to the shul being set up that we're standing facing east. So what we do on Erev Shabbos, by Kabbalah Shabbos, is we turn around to the west, we turn around to the door. Kisha omrim boy b'shalom, we say boy b'shalom ateres bala gambarino v'tzahala, boy chala boy chala. V'noig and lamoid uz, and the minig is to stand at that time. V'lasois dugma, and to do something, to act in a certain way, as if you're greeting a chash of a person. So it's not just that you stand there and you turn around and you look at the door. No, you do something like you're greeting an adam chashav. Boy, v'shalom ateres bala. Nagu, the minig is Shaloi Kabbalah Shabbos B'Yom Kippurim Shechal B'Shabbos, that we don't say Kabbalah Shabbos on Yom Kippur. So if Erev Yom Kippur is Erev Shabbos, is Friday, we don't do a whole Kabbalah Shabbos that Yom Kippur night. Rak she'omer Mizmor Shel Shabbos Kaidem Baruchu. We only say Mizmor Shel Shabbos. Va'afilu anoy hagin b'shar Yom Tov kishachal b'Shabbos loimer oid eze mizmorim b'shvel Shabbos. This minig would hold true even, let's say, by people who daven Nusach Sfard, where normally on a Yom Tov, when Erev Shabbos falls out on a Yom Tov, they would do Kabbalah Shabbos. They do maybe the first two stanzas of L'chadoidi and the last two, and then Mizmor Shir, but they do something. But even those people, when Erev Shabbos falls out on Yom Kippur, then the minig is only to say Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. There's one Biur Halacha here on Lamed Daled Amud Beis, Biur Halacha Dibra Maschil Begodim Noim. He brings down, some people are aware of this minig, Ulevishas Beged Lovan B'Shabbos. Brought down Chazal to wear white clothing on Shabbos. We don't wear white clothing on Shabbos. But he says over here, Ulevishas Beged Lovan B'Shabbos, when it comes to wearing white clothing on Shabbos, and Mersi Ki Yuaro Lo Yaseh. If it's going to make you look like a Psabal Gaiva, like you're making yourself different than everybody else, I'm so kosher, if I wear white, then you should not do it. Ube'el Yerabah Hevi Rayim Gemara to Rabbanan Love Shu Glime Uchmi B'Shabbos. They were black, Ayin Sham. Ube'beisai Rashoy Adam Lasais Marsha Yirtza Loy B'Fnei Rabbim. In your house, the privacy of your house, behind your own doors, you could do whatever you want, but not in front of the Rabbim. Okay, very good. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The source of limud HaTorah should be making against Klal Yisrael. The Rosh should send Yeshua's, Refuah's, Parnaset, Shidduchim, to those in need. We should be zeichet to see the Bias Gal Tzedek, B'mher v'yameinu, Amen. Be well.